All into the high noon stream, going a little bit early today. Let's see if there's anybody in the chat room. Anybody show up early? People, typically the show starts at noon, and maybe I don't sign on until 12:05, but it's the old showbiz trick. Keep them waiting. That's not it at all. Although it does. Oh, look at that, Mr. Popular. There I go. Today's show starting a bit early because we're gonna have to jump out of today's show at around. I'm thinking 12:50. So about an hour from now, we're going to jump out of this show. I got to do something else that has to do with a video meeting. So I got to do that for a half hour, but then I'm going to jump back on. So there will be a second show that will be scheduled probably around 1:30. And that will be the section of the show where we get into all the trends and all that kind of stuff. This first hour is just going to be, let's talk about today, baby. And we do that every Monday through Friday at noon till whenever the news runs out, baby, because that's what this is. This is a current events, hot topics, headlines, trend, whatever it is that's happening in the world. We like to break it down for you. My great fear for you, keeps me up at night, people. I worry that you're going to be somewhere out in this great, scary world, and some dude's going to come up to you and he's going to be like, hey, man, did you hear about? And you're going to be like, no, I didn't hear about that. Tell me about it. And then you're just going to have to sit there being victimized by this guy and his lack of ability to tell you the actual you know what I mean? Telephone game. I don't want you getting any nonsense information from people out there in the wild. So you tune in here every Monday through Friday at noon, and you get the straight dope. Well, no, you don't. Here's what you get. You get the headline. I tell you the headline. I tell you why it's a headline. And then I give you a hot take, and we move on to the next one. We do that every day. It's a new show. It's a hot take show is what this is. It's a current events driven hot take show that doesn't engage in that gross thing we see everywhere now, which is, hey, let's get all divisive and be political. I hate that shit. Although sometimes we do get a little political, but bear with me, folks. Well, I do it with a big heart. All right, so here's how the show works. We start out, we do it in a couple of different, 3 segments. We call it, well, actually, it's 4 segments. Is it 4 or 3? Jeez, I don't even know. Okay, it's 4. First, we do what we call Erstwhile on this day. It's essentially, a look back at what has occurred on this day throughout history, because this show is, at its core, a celebration of this very day, which is the 2nd day of June, year of our Lord, 2023. How many days left? Hold on. I don't have my proper page open. Okay, hold on. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to segue right into my typical open. But I do need to tell you about our good friends at Sacred Oils. That's right, Sacred Oils, located at 13740 Midway Road, Suite 522. But you don't need to know that because they got that big, beautiful Sacred Oil sign right there. You can't miss it if you're coming up Midway there in Farmers Branch. What do? They do CBDs. Here's why you need to pay attention to them. Because they're supporting this show. This show runs on very limited tips from you fine listeners and, a couple people who step up and go, I'll help you this month. Well, that's what they did last month. So the folks at Sacred Oils have helped us out. And in return, if you decide that you want to try the CBDs or the Deltas or whatever these things are, edibles, it is the weekend, and you go to Sacred Oils at 13740 Midway Road in beautiful, beautiful sunny Farmers Branch, Texas. Tell them Pugs 20, and they'll give you 20% off your order. That's right. So look, you're hearing about CBDs and all these things everywhere, and there's a different store in every mall. I want you to go to Sacred Oils. For me, do it for me. If you're like, you know what, I was going to go to that store down the street. No, just don't. If it's a bit of a ride, just go to Sacred Oils. Help us out because they've helped us out. 13740 Midway Road in beautiful Farmers Branch, Texas, Suite 522. Don't forget Pugs 20. Get you 20% off. Thank you, Sacred Oils. Also, must be mentioned, it is the 2nd day. So, 2nd day of the month. So we are still looking for tips. If you can drop a little something, that would be wonderful. We appreciate that. Drop something in the, Cash App. Drop a little something in the Venmo. It would go a long way to help us doing shows in the month of June. We didn't make enough for May. So, I'm going to have to do some things. Technically, I suppose, the latest I'll pay. Oh, God, do you hear the dog? See, this is the problem with today's show going early. The dog wasn't ready. The dog is usually ready laying outside the studio door at about 12 o'clock. I let her in. She lays here and she does the show. The show went early. The dog's timing was off. She was in the yard chasing a squirrel when we signed on here. Now she's, can you hear her? CeeLo. I can't get this dog to speak. Like, she makes a lot of noise. Like, she barks and stuff and she whines when she wants attention. But to go, speak. I've been trying for years. She doesn't get it. She doesn't get the concept. I'll hold some food in front of her and be like, speak. And then I'm an idiot. I'm the idiot in the kitchen going, arf. And she's just looking at me like, what? Let me let her in. Give me a second. And then we're going to get into all the things that are important about today while you consider whether or not this is a tip-worthy show. All right, girl, come on in. Sit down. No, don't go there. Sit in your chair. Oh, God, okay. All right, I don't care where you go. You can go to the studio. Is yours, man. Make yourself comfortable. Hi, baby. Hello, baby. Go lay down. All right. Well, I guess the show can begin in earnest as my co-host, CeeLo the Catahoula, is here. Been uploading videos of her doing stupid stuff. And oddly enough, these videos that I'm uploading, not to the Pugs and Company, not to the Pug site, but to my own personal YouTube site, these damn dog videos are getting more play than any of these shows that I don't get it. Well, people like dogs and people hate me. Let's get started. It is high noon for the 22nd day of June, year of our Lord, 2023, as I like to say. Did you know that June 2nd is the 153rd day of the year? That means, quick math, 212 remain until the end of the year. So as we like to say around here, chat room, say it with me, get those New Year's Eve plans started. Wow, 2 minutes before 12 o'clock in the chat room is, who's in the chat room? Who are my early guys? Who are my peeps? We got Byron. Byron can always be counted on. Leslie can always be counted on. Jeff, Jen, my people. This is my army of soldiers. Look at these people. We got Byron. We got Jameson. Jameson, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you, Jameson. We got Al. Al's always welcome. Multiple Leslie. Okay, so come on, guys. Pull your beanbag chairs, form your soul circle of life, join hands. Let's make the chat room a positive, non-cynical place to be today, okay? On this day, the segment that we do here, right? We do the first segment that we do, we like to call Erstwhile on this day. It's kind of like previously on this day. And here's where we go through the events that have occurred on June 2nd throughout history, looking for rhythms, looking for things that's weird. That's very similar. This thing that happened in 1750, very similar to the thing that happened in 1420, which is also very similar to the thing that happened in 785. You'd be surprised at the rhythms we find. We find the things that there is something that happened today that's going to blow your mind. Well, that might be overstating it a little. It'll be moderately interesting to you, but we'll get to that. Erstwhile on this day, 455, the sack of Rome. Vandals enter Rome and plunder the city for 2 weeks. Those when Rome was powerful, but like all great societies and like all great empires, they fall. They all fall. You cannot name a dominant civilization that is still thriving today that was around 1,000 years ago. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. So, keep that in mind, we Americans. We might be seeing things fall apart right now before our very eyes. We are probably 3 years away from the Vandals sacking Washington, D.C., is what I'm saying. 3 years away, a whole bunch of crazy. Some people might say, well, we saw the Vandals sacking Washington, D.C. 2 years ago. Sort of, maybe. It was the precursor. Did you know that that's where we get the term vandalism? It is. When the Vandals sacked Rome and they destroyed Rome, they put all their gang tats, they sprayed all the viaducts. You couldn't find a payphone in Rome that didn't have gang vandal insignia on it. It was crazy. On this day in 1692, Bridget Bishop. Bridget Bishop is the first person to be tried for witchcraft in Salem. Salem, Massachusetts, the witch trials. She was the first. Bridget Bishop, on this day, she was found guilty of witchcraft and hungada. She was hungada. Not burned at the stake. Like, isn't that the one that we sort of default to? Weren't all witches? No, not her. Not the first one. Apparently, they did some. They tweaked. They tweaked their system of justice. They moved on from hangings to burnings. On this day in 1763, I love this story. I've heard this story. I'm familiar with the history of this place because growing up in Chicago and growing up in the Great Lakes region, there's a lot of stories about the history of the Great Lakes and all the stuff that happened here that people don't know about. This is a great story. So I don't know if you're familiar with a place called Mackinac Island, but Mackinac Island is an island in the middle of Lake Michigan. Yeah, there's an island. It's in the middle. It's like close to Michigan. It's actually a part of the state of Michigan, but it's an island. And it's a place that like Chicagoans and other people of means might summer. You know what I mean? Sort of like summering in Rhode Island or summering in the Hamptons or Kennebunkport. It's that kind of. It's like a fancy kind of place. But here's the deal at Mackinac Island. They don't got no cars. They don't let you have cars in Mackinac Island. It's all horse-drawn carriages and beautiful resorts, and it's really nice. It's an incredible secret. That's what I would say. I would say to wealthy people in other parts of the country, Mackinac Island is a secret that you don't know about. Anyway, it was on this day in 1763, Pontiac's Rebellion. That's right, the guy who invented the car, the guy who invented the Trans Am. Pontiac's Rebellion occurred on this day. Now, what was that? Pontiac was a leader of the Chippewas, right? The Chippewas claimed this island, which had been turned into Fort Michilimackinac. Okay, Fort Michilimackinac was taken over by the Army. When the Indians were like, hey, this is kind of our cool ass resort. That's our Four Seasons. It was like that kind of a deal. So the Indians didn't want to just give up their island, but they played nice. Pontiac was smart, man. Pontiac was like Pontiac did a lot. Look, he designed the Trans Am. We all know that. That's very cool. But above and beyond that, he was a brilliant strategist. So what was Pontiac's Rebellion and how did they take back Mackinac Island or Fort Michilimackinac? Here's what they did. They staged a game of lacrosse for all of the people, all of the guards, all of the soldiers at Fort Michilimackinac. And they did it as a demonstration, like, hey, well, look what we do. And they played the Indian game of lacrosse. And one by one, the soldiers were like, oh, aren't these nice Indians? Kind of like going to like, I don't know, maybe like a Yellowstone. And, you see people, they see like the big giant bison or whatever. And they're like, oh, the bison seems nice. Let's look at the bison. Let's get close to the bison. That was kind of what Pontiac was hoping. Pontiac was hoping that in watching this game of lacrosse, that the guards might put their weapons down. They might even, start throwing the ball around. And then at one point, Pontiac had his guys accidentally launch the ball into Fort Michilimackinac. Okay. So the ball rolls in there, and like 3 or 4 of Pontiac's soldiers, Indians, tribal warriors, I guess they were tribal warriors, ran into the fort to retrieve the ball. And everybody was like, hey, guys, the ball's over there. You crazy savage. There it is. And as soon as they ran in to grab the ball, they slaughtered all the guards. And then the entire lacrosse team came in and took over the fort. That's awesome. That's pretty funny. And that happened on this day, Pontiac's Rebellion. It's not lost on me that much of this show is very similar to drunk history, because I've known about Pontiac's Rebellion, but I don't know that all of those details were true. I know the lacrosse game was true. I know the pretending the ball rolled into the fort was true. And I know that Pontiac took over Fort Michilimackinac. So but all the other things, great story though. It's probably a Wikipedia page, so you can just drop on that. On this day in 1835, P.T. Barnum and his circus start their first tour of the United States. Man. I can tell you, I love the circus. I love the circus. Oh, I know I'm a bad guy for loving the circus. Ugh. I understand. Remember, it's all about compartmentalizing things with me. I can compartmentalize with the best of them. In one compartment in my brain, I love the circus. I love the circus as a kid. And most importantly to me, the first 5 or 6 years of my son's life, that was our tradition. We went to the Ringling Brothers Circus. And it was just, divorced, weekends with the kid, that whole thing. So you try and make moments that are memorable. And I can tell you, our Ringling Brothers moments are amazing. We still talk about that stuff. We do. But the other compartment in my head is they're pretty mean to animals, and you like animals. So how do you, how do you rectify the two? Well, I don't. And, I guess other people did it for me because there are no more circuses, right? Didn't Ringling Brothers get rid of the animals? And now it's just like weird acrobats and stuff like that. I don't know. It's the guy in the motorcycle and the ball. Remember that one? That one's good. And then his buddy comes in, and then it's two guys in the ball. The silver cage ball? And then they have two dudes on, and they go like this. Two guys on motorcycle, and then they go, and then they go around and around and around, and you're like, these guys are gonna die, and they don't, but someday they might. I guess that's all we get with the circus now. We don't get animals. It was cool. Look, I saw an elephant close up. I watched an elephant poop. Yeah, I guess you can see that at the zoo, but the circus, there's a bit more pageantry to it. On this day in 1835, P.T. Barnum started his circus and went on tour. On this day in 1896, Guillermo Marconi applies for a patent for his wireless telegraph. Is that radio? I don't know. Is it Marconi? Grace Slick and Starship taught me that Marconi plays the mamba. Listen to the radio. All right, that's a lie. That song didn't teach me that. I went to school. I went to journalism school. I know who Marconi is, okay? But I don't know. Is wireless telegraph? Is that what they called radio back then? Maybe. On this day in 1924, United States President Calvin Coolidge signs the Indian Citizenship Act, granting citizenship to all natives born within the territorial limits of the United States. Isn't that nice? That's so nice. I guess that was the last resort. I mean, they didn't have any other choices because, one guy went, why don't you go back to where you came? And then he had to stop. And he's like, I ain't got a good name. I ain't got a good comeback to these Indians. And then they said, let's just make them citizens. Very nice of us. Very nice of us to say that the people that were here first. All right, you're legal now. On this day in 1953, the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II at Westminster Abbey becomes the first British coronation and one of the very first major international events to be televised. It is amazing when you watch footage of this coronation. I saw it. There was video of it going around on the Twitter sphere. And I was watching the coronation of young Queen Elizabeth, and she died last year. So she was old, like 100 years. She was just a kid, man. She was just a kid. You see her in 1950. It's crazy to think how long she was queen. Longest serving sovereign in British history, I think, or English history. What is the proper term there? British or English? I don't know. That was 1953. On this day in 1997, in Denver, Timothy McVeigh is convicted of 15 counts of murder and conspiracy for his role in the 1995 bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building, where? Oklahoma City. 168 people died. He was executed 4 years later. Okay. I don't have to say anything about that piece of garbage. Here's another piece of garbage we can talk about. On this day in 2012, former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak is sentenced to life in prison for his role in the killing of demonstrators during the 2011 Egyptian revolution. So he wasn't found guilty of murder per se. He was in charge of Egypt. He was in charge of Egypt for 30 years. Mubarak was Sadat's vice president. When Sadat was assassinated, it was Mubarak who moved into the big chair, and he kept that until 2011. And then there was an uprising, and apparently the military went a little nuts, and they killed a bunch of people, and he was in charge. So when his regime fell, he was basically brought in front of the Supreme Court there in Egypt, and they tried him, and they found him guilty, and they sentenced him to life in prison. Life imprisonment for what did they call it? A dereliction of duty. It was his duty to stop the military from slaughter. At least that's what the Egyptian Supreme Court found. So he got life in prison, and then he immediately went, I'm sick and need to go to a special fancy hospital in France. Like one of them kind of things, because that's what people with influence do. They don't go to jail. They go and have pretend cancer treatments for the next 30 years of their lives at some fancy resort hotel hospital in France. So anyway, that's what he did. So he didn't go to jail. And then while he was receiving his treatment, Mubarak was then retried. They went, that first trial wasn't right. And they retried him, and basically nothing. He's out. He went to jail. It was a lesser charge, from life imprisonment to 2 years in prison, time served or whatever. And he's out. He got out in 2017 and then died. So that was on this day in 2012. Former Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak is sentenced to life in prison. All right, let's get into some birthdays. This is the segment where we go through people who were born on this particular day, this day being June the 2nd. We talk about their contributions, or we completely crap on their life. It all depends really on the individual in question. We call it the birthday segment. Ba-na-na-na-na-na. Today is their birthday. Ba-na-na-na-na-na. I don't have song rights. Born on this day in 1730. Oh, hold on. Now I got to do something. Time out. Time out. Hold up. Hey. Let's see here. Let's see, which one do I need? Boom, 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 boom. Okay, birthday segment. I didn't have the birthday segment pulled up. And that's on me. That's not on you. Don't stop it. You're always taking these things on yourself. This is on me. It was me. I didn't pull it up. Remember, you listeners are infallible. Hold on. Give me a sec. Computer is slow from time to time. It takes a minute to do this. All right, let's restart the birthday segment. Let's do this. Buana. Today is your birthday. Okay. Born on this day in 1731. Ladies and gentlemen, the first lady of the United States and Stone Cold Fox, Martha Washington. Martha Washington. Hip lady, man. I love Dazed and Confused. Martha Washington. I don't know anything about Martha Washington. I don't know anything. I mean, I know George had wooden teeth. So I guess there wasn't a whole lot of, pleasure going on for Martha. Other than that, I really don't know anything about Martha Washington. There's probably a biography, but why would I read that? Why would I read the biography? Why? Because now here I sit going, I don't know anything about Martha Washington. There you go. That's a reason to read the bio book. Dazed and Confused. That's pretty much what we know about Martha Washington, right? Dazed and Confused. I love this scene.
George Tote weed.
Absolutely, George Tote weed. Are you kidding me, man? He grew fields of that stuff, man. That's what I'm talking about. Fields.
He grew that shit up in Mount Vernon, man.
Mount Vernon, man. He grew it all over the country, man. He had people growing it all over the country, The whole country back then was getting hot. Let me tell you, man, because he knew. He was on to something, man. He knew that it would be a good cash crop for the southern states, man. And so he grew fields of it, man. But you know what? Behind every good man, there's a woman. And that woman was Martha Washington, man. And every day George would come home, she'd have a big fat bowl waiting for him, man, when he'd come in the door, man. She was a hip lady, man.
Happy birthday, Martha Washington. You are a hip lady, man. I love that character. I love that movie. I don't think there's a character in that movie that, is that a movie I can watch with my 14-year-old? Can I watch Dazed and Confused with my 14-year-old? I mean, it depicts, you know what? We should watch Dazed and Confused this summer because my son is going into high school. And isn't that the whole premise of it? Weren't they freshmen getting abused by an unknown, what's that guy's name? Ben Affleck. and getting beer bought from Matthew McConaughey. God, that movie is so great. Born on this day, 1731, Martha Washington. Never forget. A hip lady, man. On this day in 1920, here's a big one. Born on this day, Tex Schramm. How about them Cowboys? Tex Schramm, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, sold to Jimmy Jones. Jerry Jones. Jimmy Johnson. Why did I say Jimmy Jones? Who is Jimmy Jones? There's a famous Jimmy Jones out there. I just don't know who to. Jim Jones. There we go. Jim Jones, cult leader. Sold the team to Jerry Jones, who hired Jimmy Johnson, who gave us all those wonderful Super Bowls in the 90s. But we old heads, we remember the real glory days of the Dallas Cowboys when they were the unquestioned America's team. Tex Schramm, Tom Landry, Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett. Who else we got? Randy White. Yeah. Tex Schramm, born on this day, Dallas Cowboys owner. Born on this day in 1930, Pete Conrad. What do we do on this show? We salute real American heroes, and Pete Conrad absolutely is a real American hero. You guys, Pete Conrad walked on the moon, okay? What did you do in your life? Pete Conrad was the third man to walk on the moon. Captain of the Apollo 13. No, not Apollo 13. Apollo 12? Apollo 12 mission, maybe? I think so. Third man to walk. Yeah, he would be third because Neil and Buzz were 1 and 2, and then Pete Conrad was 3. He went up in the next mission. Happy birthday to you, American hero, Pete Conrad. Don't roll your eyes at me. Don't roll your eyes at me. You people are idiots if you don't think that these astronauts, these guys that I deify every time they have a birthday or an anniversary of their death, aren't deserving of our incredible praise. These are a bunch of First of all, they were idiots. They were just like test pilots and like stunt show guys. Some of them were Air Force pilots and some of them were Army pilots and Navy pilots. But for the most part, they had this streak in them that made them total outlaws. They were fascinating guys, with the possible exception of John Glenn, who was incredibly boring. But all the rest of them were super freaking interesting and really smart and really crazy guys. I mean, think about it. It's 1960, and they're like, all right, here's the plan. We're going to put you in a trash can, a tin trash can. We're going to cram you in there. We're going to put the lid on it, and then we're going to put that trash can on top of a pile of dynamite, and we're just going to blow you up in the sky. We're pretty sure it ain't going to work, but you still want to try it? And they went, yes, we do. Why? Because when humanity stops exploring, humanity stops. There you go. Born on this day, Pete Conrad. Born on this day in 1941, Stacy Keach, American actor. Stacy Keach, what I think of Stacy Keach, what do I think? I mean, what is Stacy Keach? He did a whole bunch of movies. He did a bunch of Mike Hammer. Wasn't he like Mike Hammer on like some Showtime series back in the 80s? Cheech and Chong movies. Didn't he? I think Stacy Keach routinely played like a police officer who was a detective chasing Cheech and Chong. Stacy Keach, born on this day in 1941. I don't know if he's still alive or not. He might be. 41, he should still be alive. 41. Well, here we go. Because here's another guy that was born in 1941 who is not alive. So maybe I should shut my mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, born on this day, happy birthday to the recently departed Charlie Watts, drummer for the Rolling Stones. He died in 2021. He died while we were on the air. Remember, we were doing a live stream, and it just suddenly started popping up that Rolling Stones drummer Charlie Watts, the gentleman Charlie Watts, died. 2 years? Was it 2 years ago? Wait, when did he die? What year? What year is it now, people? I need help. When did he die? 2021. 2 years ago? 2 years ago? I was doing a stream 2 years. I think I was. Wow, look at that. Okay. Born on this day in 1944, but also dead, Marvin Hamlish. Marvin Hamlish was very famous in the 70s and 80s. He like wrote every bad song that was in a movie that, I don't know, if you were 5 years old watching Merv Griffin, you may have seen Marvin Hamlish. That's all I can tell you about him. Born on this day in 1948, Jerry Mathers, the Beaver. So Jerry Mathers was the Beaver. He was incredibly famous, probably the most famous person in America for a period of time. Everybody knows the Beaver. For boomers, the Beaver is like a superstar. For everybody else, it's like, who's Jerry Mathers? Jerry, did he exist in a time when child actors, I mean, why didn't he have, you would think he would have been able to parlay that into some kind of other role, right? I mean, did he get Gilligan? Beavered. Did he get beavered? I mean, because Beaver predates Gilligan. I mean, if Jerry Mathers couldn't get work because he was typecast as Beaver, I guess we could call it getting beavered instead of getting Gilligan. And I kind of like getting called beavered better. Born on this day in 1948, Jerry Mathers, the Beaver. Born on this day in 1954, the greatness of Dennis Haysbert. Dennis Haysbert. He's the Allstate guy. You should buy Allstate because I said so. And he's very intimidating. It's like if I was in an office with Dennis Haysbert, he's like, "You signing with Allstate?" I'd be like, "I guess you can kick my ass." You know who I remember Dennis Haysbert as? And do people know this? Do people know that the Allstate guy, Dennis Haysbert, also Dennis Haysbert was in a show called The Unit that I used to love. I used to love The Unit. Yeah, I'm a bit of a meathead. I can get into the meathead stuff. I can appreciate meathead content. And The Unit was kind of meathead because it was very military work, but it was fun. I liked it. Same guy who did The Shield, I believe. Sean Ryan, I think, did The Unit. And David Mamet. I think David Mamet was actually involved in The Unit. So maybe it wasn't quite as meathead as I thought. Anyway, Dennis Haysbert, do people know he was Joe Boo? Or not Joe Boo, Serrano. Remember his bat was Joe Boo. Remember Serrano from Major League? Charlie Sheen? Wow thing. Remember he was like the Dominican player or whatever who believed in voodoo, and he had his bat. Joe Boo was cursed, and then Joe Boo wasn't cursed. That was Dennis Haysbert. Yeah, that's the Allstate guy. Happy birthday to you, Dennis Haysbert. Born on this day in 1955, Dana Carvey, ladies and gentlemen, Dana Carvey. Obviously, I think Dana Carvey's funny. Dana Carvey's a funny guy. That's undeniable. That is Dana Carvey. Is he funny? Yes. That's what everybody would say. He's funny. He's just a little much sometimes for me. A little much. It seems like he's got that Robin Williams thing that I find irritating, where he's just like always on. It's like, okay, calm down, take a breath. However, fun fact, heading into the weekend, I like to give you things that maybe you can watch and that you might enjoy, that you might not know about. Do you like documentaries? There is an amazing documentary on Hulu. You can find it right now. If you've got Hulu, you can watch it this weekend. And I highly suggest you watch it because it's really entertaining. It's really interesting. And it's a fascinating story. Dana Carvey had a TV show in the 1990s called The Dana Carvey Show. It was on ABC. And Dana Carvey left Saturday Night Live to sign this big deal for a primetime show with ABC networks. And ABC, they built everything around Dana Carvey. This was a big get for them. They're like, he's so popular. Let's put him. So they created this thing called The Dana Carvey Show. And Dana Carvey just hired all of these really talented, no-name people that nobody'd ever heard of. And he created a show. And he created a show that aired on ABC. And this was back when it was still the Disney Network. Remember, they had kicked Ellen off for being gay. So they weren't exactly, cutting edge as far as network TV goes, which was odd because Dana Carvey attempted to make one of the most cutting edge primetime comedy series of all time. And it was wild. It only aired, I think I only remember seeing like 5 episodes of it, but I loved it. It was so crazy. I didn't know who any of these people were that I was seeing, but here's what I knew. This was insurgent comedy on ABC in prime time on Wednesday night. I think it was Wednesday night. So there's a Hulu documentary called Too Funny to Fail, the story of the Dana Carvey Show. And it is fascinating. Here, let me show you this. We're going to sit here and we're going to watch the trailer for it because this might be something you're interested in seeing this weekend if you like these kinds of things. Here, it's Too Funny to Fail. It is available on Hulu. Hold on, here we go. All right, let's do this. So this is my gift to you. If you're looking for something to watch this weekend, how about checking out on Hulu, Too Funny to Fail, the Dana Carvey Show story.
Dana Carvey Show, total disaster, total disaster. Celebrity Apprentice, our ratings are so huge, fantastic. That show, not so good, okay?
It's the Dana Carvey Show.
When I left SNL, I kind of decided that it'd be fun to do sketch comedy again, but with more creative freedom.
I couldn't believe they gave us all this talent and money to do the show we wanted to do.
The head writer, a guy who was only like 29 at the time, completely unknown. His name was Louis C.K.
Here we are in my office,
We had to put the team together,
Robert
but they
Smalley,
were absolute
Louis C.K.
nobody.
and Robert
Big
Smalley.
news from Brown's Chicken.
I mean, these guys were
Carell.
nothing. Thanks.
It's
Stephen Colbert.
absolutely true.
Hi, I'm Stephen Colbert.
My wife, she was out of a job, I was out of a job, and we had a brand new baby.
Why am I an actor? My brothers are lawyers.
I am Fabio.
My agent told me, if it doesn't happen for you soon, it's not going to happen. Thanks for the support. Man, we had hired badass nerd pirates
Charlie
to blow
Kaufman.
up the system.
I've had myself surgically fitted with a hand's ass.
It was being marketed as this kind of fun show. And I think people were like, what the fuck is this?
Look at all these talented people. Look at our star. The idea that anything could go wrong with this show made no sense to us because ABC was putting it on primetime. What a mistake.
If you're looking for something if you're looking for something to watch and you like that kind of stuff, I can highly suggest Too Funny to Fail, the Dana Carvey documentary on Hulu. It is very interesting and fun. And I don't know, maybe if you don't remember the show, it won't be that much fun. But I do remember the show. And I remember when ABC freaked out because he did this bit, and I think they showed a clip of it on there. Clip of him as like the president of the United States, but he was also half a chicken. So he was constantly like laying eggs. And it was so bizarre and it was so weird. It was so insurgent for like 8:30 in the evening on a Wednesday on ABC. So it failed. It went away, but it's a really good show. And happy birthday to you, Dana Carvey. A guy who I think you're a little bit too turned on all the time. You could dial it back a little bit. Other than that, you are an immense talent. I really do believe that. Born on this day in 1968. Here's a boss. He's a boss, literally, and in the nomenclature of the street, he is absolutely a boss. Happy birthday, born on this day in 1968, Andy Cohen. Andy Cohen is a television celebrity. Boy, there's a demographic in this country that, you know, Andy Cohen is one of the biggest stars in the world. Me, I just know who he is because I've heard chicks mention him and I've seen him from time to time. How do I know? I guess I know him most from like CNN's New Year's Eve show. Didn't he replace Kathy Griffin? Doesn't matter. I know the story of Andy Cohen, and it's incredible. It's a really cool story. Andy Cohen was a marketing executive. Andy Cohen's not a TV guy. He was an executive who worked at Bravo. Okay. And he created this whole Real Housewives concept. I don't know if he created it. I don't know if it was pitched to him and he ran with it or whatever, but he's the guy that is, the Real Housewives guy. And I think we all know what happened with the Real Housewives franchise. It became the dominant thing on that network. And because of this, Andy Cohen suddenly became like the president of the damn network. He's like in charge of everything because why not, right? A guy that can have that much success with a completely forgettable network. Bravo was do you people remember A&E and Bravo? They were the Coke and Pepsi when they were first launched. A&E, and it's so funny because it's like this is the last time. This is such a funny thing. This is the last time that I think television programmers overestimated the American public. They completely overestimated what the American public wanted to see on television because A&E and Bravo were created as classical music and opera networks. A&E was supposed to be all about, if in the early days of A&E, you used to see like Boston pop symphonies. And on Bravo, it was ballet. You would put on Bravo and there'd be a ballet on. And of course, nobody was watching that shit. So now we've got Intervention. Now we've got all kinds of crazy shows. Do you remember the Learning Channel? The Learning Channel was literally supposed to be an educational network. And then nobody wanted to learn nothing. So now we have My 400-Pound Life. They overestimated the American public. Happy birthday to you, Andy Cohen. Andy Cohen didn't. Andy Cohen was at Bravo, and he's like, ain't nobody want to watch a symphony. You know what they want to watch? They want to watch trophy wives fight each other at a restaurant. And he was right. Andy Cohen, happy birthday. Born on this day in 1968. Andy Cohen, born on Wayne Brady, born on this day in 1972. 72, Wayne Brady. Well, that Wayne Brady, Dave Chappelle sketch was really funny, right? Other than that, I don't know Wayne Brady. I mean, I know who he is because he was pretty much omnipresent. He was everywhere for a period of time. Everybody, Wayne Brady, using, But I did never watch like the Wayne Brady show, or was he a sitcom show, a talk show? I don't know what he was, but he's a guy, and I know he has a reputation of being very bland. And then he went on Chappelle's show, and he completely overturned that whole brand. He played a gangster thug. It was very funny. Look it up on YouTube. You'll find it. Born on this day in 1977, Zachary Quinto. I don't know if he's a big star. I don't know. To me, he is. He was Siler. Do you guys remember Heroes? God, I used to love that show, Heroes. Heroes. Where is that? Where can I find Heroes? I might re-binge Heroes. That was a good show. That was a really good show. Siler. He played Siler, the bad guy, the monster, the evil guy. And look, I watch a lot of stuff, and Siler is one of the creepiest bad guys anywhere of any kind. Zachary Quinto played this character really well. So happy birthday to you, Zachary Quinto. I don't know what else you've done, but Siler is burned into my head. Born on this day in 1978. Here's another guy you never heard of, unless you watch the incredible show Preacher. Do you guys watch Preacher? Oh my God, Preacher is so good. What is Preacher on? I don't even know. Is Preacher on A&E or is Preacher on FX? I don't know, but Dominic Cooper plays Preacher. Preacher is a comic book movie about a preacher who's a West Texas preacher who's suddenly inhabited by this power, this demon from another planet. Anyway, it's crazy good show, and Dominic Cooper is crazy good in it. Happy birthday, Dominic Cooper. You are my preacher. Born on this day in 1978, fabulous babe alert, Nikki Cox. Nikki Cox, man. You remember her? Remember Nikki Cox? So, I don't know what that show was called. What was that show called that she was on? Here's what I don't even know what that show's called, but here's what I know. I know that Married with Children was a very popular show on Fox. And the writers of Married with Children, they went to Fox and they said, we want more money. Come on, this show's a massive hit. You guys are paying us like, we're first-year writers. Married with Children is a massive hit. You need to pay us more or we're walking. And the writers of Married with Children said, well, we're just going to hire Ted McGinley so you guys can leave. And that's basically what happened. So the writers of Married with Children marched across the street to the WB and they said, so we just walked from Married with Children and we've got some ideas. So they created this show with Nikki Cox. What was it called? You got Unhappily Ever After? Was that it? And Unhappily Ever After was a direct ripoff of Married with Children, but done not nearly as good. It was Married with Children with Alf, basically. It was Married with Children with a puppet, with like this. It was such a weird, stupid show. But the memorable thing of that show was, of course, Nikki Cox, who was playing the Christina Applegate role. And Christina Applegate was cute. I remember watching the early episodes of Married with Children going, yeah, she's kind of hot. She's a little slutty for me, but she's kind of hot. But then I saw the other version of Christina Applegate that they created for this other show in Nikki Cox. Whoa! Holy cow, where did Nikki Cox come from? And here's the even weirder thing. So Nikki Cox was on that show. And the puppet who was on the show was voiced by Bobcat Goldthwait. The hot girl in that show ended up marrying the puppet. I'll tell you. That's great. That's great. You ever seen Bobcat Goldthwait? Bobcat Goldthwait married Nikki Cox in the 90s. Do you remember Nikki Cox in the 90s? I'm telling you, boys, funny will get you where you want to go with women. I'm telling you, Bobcat Goldthwait, obvious. Nikki Cox looked at Bobcat Goldthwait, who is not an attractive man. Nikki Cox, who is indisputably, especially at that time, one of the sexiest women, going. She looked at Bobcat Goldthwait and she went, you know what? I can get any guy I want, but this guy makes me laugh hysterically, and I really like being around him. So they got married. It didn't last. They got divorced. They were together for a while. She dumped him for another funny guy, Jay Moore. Better looking funny guy. I think after like a couple of years of having sex with Bobcat Goldthwait, she was like, okay, so I like the funny. I don't like the rest of it. The rest of it is not hot. And then she saw Jay Moore and she went, I got the funny and I don't mind sleeping with him. And that's kind of what happened. I think they're broken up now too, though. I think Nikki Cox and Jay Moore are broken up. Jay Moore's an a-hole. I hate Jay Moore. Jay Moore's a jerk. Jay Moore is someone who I've had many interactions with. And you know that khaki, I'm Jay Moore, that bit, that thing that he does, Jay Moore, it's like his whole act. Okay, whatever. Yeah, that's him in real life. That's him all the time. That's him at the coffee machine at the radio station break room where you're trying to get him to come in because he showed up for one interview at a radio station with a posse of like 10 dudes, like 10 other guys. And they were so obnoxious. We had to put them in the upstairs conference room and they were making noise. They were drunk. They were just a-holes, man. They were just, I never had been that. Well, actually, I'm trying to think of it. We didn't throw them out, but there was like discussion about they got to go. They got to go. They're doing this too close to the GM's office. They can't be acting like this up there. So Jay Moore, sure, you got Nikki Cox, but you're a D-bag. You're a real D-bag. Kind of funny, though. I do kind of enjoy Jay Moore and some of his work, but in real life, he's a D-bag. Let's see here. Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. I was just talking about Nikki Cox. I'm going to go happy birthday, Nikki Cox. God, and on this day in 1978, God made Nikki Cox. God was showing off. God must have had a crush on a girl. There must have been like a girl somewhere there. And God was, she's like, what you doing, God? And he's like, making people. And she's like, oh, can I watch you make people for a while? He's like, yeah, I'm about to make a girl. You want to see me make a girl? And she's like, yeah, I'd like to see you make a girl. And he made Nikki Cox. And she was like, oh, that's really impressive. And apparently that didn't work out between God and her. And a good, what do you want to say? A year later, exactly 1 year later, God had another girl up there and God was trying to impress her. And she's like, what are you making? He's like, I'm making human. And she's like, what kind of human? He said, a girl. And then he went, look, I'm making this. And he made, on this day in 1979, Morena Baccarin. Morena Baccarin. I think I like my lists, and I've got lists of the most beautiful women, and she is somewhere. There was a time not too long ago where she was number one, where she was the most, in my opinion, the most beautiful woman on the planet. And now she's probably I'd have to reevaluate that list to really figure out who's number one these days. But Morena Baccarin, you might know her from Homeland, Showtime series. She played the wife of the terrorist guy at the center of it. Gotham. She's the coroner. Oh, she isn't, guys. She's dating Jim, the star of Gotham, Jim, whoever. Who is that guy? Jim Gordon, soon to be Commissioner Gordon. But in the show Gotham, he's just like Detective Gordon. That's his girlfriend, Maria Baccarin. But here's what's interesting about Maria Baccarin. I don't even know how to say her name. Actually, let's look at her. You want to see her? You want to see who I'm talking about? I'll show you who I'm talking about. Nope, not that. Can't do that. Not interested in that. Here we go. We're going to do these. When she was a model, and she was a model. She was really? You think? Was she a model? Yeah, she was a model, and she became an actress. She's from Rio de Janeiro, or wherever that is. Wherever that is. I know where Rio de Janeiro is. There you go. There she is right there. So here's the interesting thing about her. When she was a model, back in, I don't know if this was like in the early 2000s or something like that, NASA sent out like an explorer into deep space. They sent recordings, they sent some Beatles songs, they sent, constitutions of different countries. They sent all kinds of things. Just, we're just going to shoot it out there into space. And if there is some intelligent life and they discover this, they'll get a nice little care package of everything that we're about, or at least what we pretend to be about here as humans on Earth. And in that package was a representation of what humanity looks like. And it was her. They chose her. They chose this face. This is the face that, I don't know, maybe aliens have already found that care package. But when they do, and they say, who sent this? Or they're trying to figure out what does this humanoid race look like? This is what they're going to see. And how typically human is it that we are pulling a full Monty type con on these people? Because this is not at all what the typical human looks like. There she is. Look at her. Now, why was she chosen? She was chosen because They believed that her face and her features and her complexion and all of that best sort of combined all of the different races and all of the different types of humanity. You know, she's not white, she's not black, she's not brown. She's got her eyes, they're not necessarily like Asian, style eyes or Western style eyes. They're sort of a combination. So that's why she was chosen. She was chosen because they looked at her and they said, you know what, she looks like the face of humanity. Now, in a very funny sort of twist on that, like a decade later, they made a television show called V. Do you remember the TV show V? It was the story of visitors from outer space finally making contact with humanity and basically taking over. That's what V was about. Now, when the alien race would communicate with the humans here, the alien race used her, Marina Baccarin, because she had been the one years later. So like there was the way we saw it was a giant UFO like hovering over Washington, D.C. And underneath the UFO is like a massive city-sized jumbotron. And on that jumbotron representing the aliens who are invading was her. And she's like talking to them. And that was because of what she was chosen for. And was it a Voyager mission? I'm not sure what kind of mission it was, but there you go. When the aliens discover humanity, they're going to think we all look like her. And when they get here, I don't think they're going to be happy. Born on this day in 1978, born on this day in 1979, Morena Baccarin. All right, that's going to do it. That's going to do it for birthdays. Buona, buona, buona. Those were the birthdays. Buona, buona, buona. Now we go into these are the people who died. These are the people who died. Do we care? This is a segment where we talk about people who have passed away on this day, and we have to decide whether or not we care or not. So let's run through these really quickly because I'm running out of time. I got to sign off here in a second. We got to do a bit of a meeting, and then I'm going to sign back on, and we're going to get into all the trends. So don't fret. I'm not going to give you a half show. There's just going to be a little break in the middle here, okay? Dead on this day in 1941, Lou Gehrig. Do we care? Yes. Yes, we care. You ever seen Pride of the Yankees? Gary Cooper as Lou Gehrig. Oh. Dead on this day in 1969, Leo Gorcey. I think this is a Gen X thing. Well, certainly it's a boomer thing, and even before that, but for Gen X in the 80s on Saturday afternoons, they used to run these old movies, and they used to run these things called the East Side Kids or the Bowery Boys or whatever. And that's where he came from. Leo Gorcey was the leader of these. Now, what were those shows? Imagine the Little Rascals, but teenagers, right? So that's basically, and not even teenagers. Like we're talking about, they were probably 30-year-old men, but they were playing like 18, 19-year-old kids. So it was a little bit edgier than the Little Rascals, which I liked. Why did all these things have different names? Like the Little Rascals, that's what I call them. But other people might call them our gang. That's the Little Rascals. Like I call this thing that Leo Gorcey and Hunts Hall. They were basically the two stars of the East Side Kids. Or do you call them the Bowery Boys? I don't know. Do we care that Leo Gorcey died? Yeah. I kind of liked him. He was funny. Dead on this day in 1970, Bruce McLaren, New Zealand race car driver and engineer, founded the McLaren racing team. My all-time favorite supercar. Like, hey, Pugs, you're a billionaire. What car you buying first? Get me a bright orange McLaren. There's a trophy wife. There's a gorgeous trophy wife. Man, I see her all the time. I see her at Whole Foods. I see her trucking around the neighborhood. There's a trophy wife in this neighborhood here of Highland Park, Texas, who struts around town in her very own orange McLaren. Oh my God. It is so great. And of course, you're like, why orange? Because you can't have a McLaren if it's not orange. If you're driving a McLaren and it's not orange, you're a fool and you're doing it wrong. You're just a poser. You're just a rich guy with no class. McLarens have to be orange. Ferraris have to be red. If you're driving a Jaguar that isn't British racing green, you're doing it wrong. And if you have a Porsche that is neither silver or black, you're doing it wrong. These are the accepted colors for these supercars. Yes, you can get them in other colors, but you shouldn't. Every time I see like a blue Jaguar, I'm like, why would you get a Jaguar and have it not be Jaguar British Racing Green? That's the... McLarens are orange, man. They're orange and they like glow and they look like, I don't know, they look like a Ferrari and a Lamborghini had a baby and they called it a McLaren. Do we care that Bruce McLaren died on this day? Yeah, we do, because he made a really cool car. I love the McLaren. They're my favorite F1 racing team. They're my favorite F1 racing team too, because I love McLarens, but also, they're not Mercedes or Red Bull or Ferrari. They're one of the mid-pack teams that, when they win or when they're competitive, it's real exciting. So I root for McLaren. I wish Danny wasn't gone. They got rid of Danny Ricciardo. Danny was their driver. Now he's out of work. He's my favorite driver, but on this day, Bruce McLaren, do we care? Yeah, because he made my car I like. On this day in 1996, Ray Combs died, American game show host. Remember, this is such a weird one, man. This is so crazy. This is, like I say, this is why we go through history. We look for things that happened in different years on the very same day. Is there a rhythm to this existence? Is there some sort of a pattern that we can figure out? And how does that help me win the lotto? I don't know. That's, this is the disconnect. I've got to fill that void. Ray Combs took over for Richard Dawson as host of the Family Feud. We all remember this. Richard Dawson is gone. Richard Dawson, Family Food. Yeah, Family Food Network show, Family Food. All right. I'll develop it, but I just thought of that. There's probably already been a billion shows with that. I don't think that's necessarily a genius observation or idea, but we're going to run with it. We're going to see if anybody wants to buy that for a couple $1 million. Probably not, but it's worth a try. Ray Combs. So Ray Combs killed himself. On this day in 1996. What an absolutely tragic and horrific story with this poor man who seemed like such a nice guy. He seemed like, look, people hated him because he wasn't Richard Dawson, which always happens when you replace a legend. Folks, rule number 1 of showbiz, never replace a legend. Never. The legend, when he goes away and he's not there anymore and they put you in his seat, everybody who's upset that the legend is gone is gonna hate you. And a lot of times the people who are hired to replace a legend, David Lee Roth, is sometimes just sort of a sorbet to get everybody angry and get everybody out, because here's the other rule of this. The guy who replaces the legend is the worst. The guy who replaces the guy who replaced the legend is beloved because it's all they wanted. I mean, I want Howard Stern, but Howard's gone. And now you give me David Lee Roth, and I hate David Lee Roth. He's the worst. And then they get rid of David Lee Roth and they give you something new. And they're like, thank you. I have power. You changed because I was upset. It's crazy. People are crazy. Ray Combs replaced Richard Dawson, and he had some financial troubles. He opened a bunch of comedy clubs. They weren't doing well. His wife left him, and he tried to kill himself. He went into a hospital. He was released from the hospital. Then he started going nuts in his house. He started putting his head through the walls and all that kind of stuff. So his ex-wife called the police. The police showed up. She informed the police that Ray Combs had tried to kill himself the week before. So they took him and put him on a 72-hour hold, and within 12 hours, he had hung himself with the bed sheets. So, I mean, just an absolute. How are you on a 72-hour hold and you're allowed to hang yourself? I don't get that. A 72-hour psychiatric hold for a guy who a week earlier had been in a hospital for a suicide attempt. How are you not watching him all the time? I don't know. Anyway, very sad story. Ray Combs seemed like a very nice man who had the unfortunate. And at the time, it probably sounded great. Like, how many people wanted that job after Richard Dawson? They're like, I'll take it. I need work. It kind of destroyed him. It kind of destroyed him. He ended up hanging himself with a bed sheet in a hotel. While under a 72-hour psychiatric hold. Very sad, Ray Combs. Dead on. Do we care? Yeah, we do. Of course we care, because we're compassionate human beings. And that's a compelling story about a guy who Just got overwhelmed. Dead on this day in 2003, Freddie Blassie. Freddie Blassie, wrestling legend, WWE, WWF, whatever, Hall of Famer, considered the greatest heel in the history of wrestling. Do we care? No, because he's a heel. We don't care about you, Freddie Blassie. You're a jerk. Dead on this day in 2008, Hey, Bo Diddley. Do we care? Yeah, we care. Hey, Bo Diddley. Yeah, we care. Bo Diddley was cool. Now, are you ready to have your mind blown? Are you ready to have your mind blown? Dead on this very day in 2012. Dead on this day in 2012. Do you remember the other people we talked about who died today? Dead on this day in 2012. Original Family Feud host Richard Dawson. Richard freaking Dawson died 16 years to the day after the guy who replaced him committed suicide. Wow. Wow, that's crazy bones. That's scary stuff. All right, folks, that's going to do it. That's it. We've went through all of the what did we go through? We went through the events of the day. We did the erstwhile. We did birthdays. We did passings. And so now is the time when we would seamlessly transition into the hot topics, trends, current events, headlines of the day. But we're going to take a break. We're going to pause. I'm going to jump off here. I hope you guys come back. I will reschedule another show, so you'll get a warning on your Facebook or whatever. It shouldn't be all of that long. I anticipate it being about 1:30 or something like that. I mean, we will see. So yeah, I appreciate you being that way today, because I know this is a little bit different than our regular schedule, but help us out here. So we're going to see you in, there we go. Hold on. Oh boy. Okay. I'm already getting emails concerning this, so I got to go. See you in a little bit. Okay, guys, we'll be back with trending topics, headlines, current events, and all that stuff on the High Noon Report with me, Pugs Moran, here on the Radio Misfits